Welcome to another installment of Design Lab, your virtual workshop series here at Gladstone to provide the Gladstone community with ongoing training and support for a wide range of design and science illustration projects. I am your host, Giovanni Mackey, the creative director here at Gladstone.
And I'm Tammy Tulpa. I'm the science illustrator at Gladstone.
Quick little housekeeping notes that I just want to remind everybody about. This isn't a meeting format. You can jump on and be informal. We can ask questions during the show, or you can pop your questions in the Q&A or use the chat. We will try to do our best, but if you pop them in the Q&A, then we probably keep track of things a little bit easier. We will be posting this on YouTube afterwards. So, the concept here is that you're able to learn something new, but don't panic about missing a thing. You can always go back and watch some details later. And also, continue the conversation on and engage with us on our designated Slack channel for everyone here at Gladstone can continue engaging with us, ask questions about anything you need clarification over, pop in other questions about design problems that you're having and that you want us to address on the next episode, or directly there in Slack. With that, Tammy, I had a question for you.
Yeah.
How many years have you been in this hustle?
Oh no.
It's been about 20 years for me. It's been about 20 years.
I got my MFA in 1998. So, how many years is that?
So you've been science illustrating ever since.
Yeah. So is that like 25 years? We'll say it's 25. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about 45 years cumulative of experience. I always hate it when people do that sort of math. It's so weird, but really is. I think I think something that's kind of special to Gladstone, that there are two people with the amount of experience that we both have. I'm so happy that we have this platform to kind of share that sort of thing. And also the opportunity that I think that a lot of Gladstonians have, which is to come work and engage with us on an individual level. And I don't think everybody really realizes that we are a resource that everyone can reach out to us for, and we are much like the editorial group, not a chargeback service, but just a service open and available. And what do we all cover? We have obviously a science illustration that we can offer. We can offer design, as we've been demoing here the last several months. And we can also offer consulting services, as well as editorial illustrations for all those journal covers that you might be considering. Not the highest priority, but always something that we can definitely help out with. Presentation design. What else, Tammy? Am I missing anything?
To help with data visualization design.
Yeah, absolutely.
And can I mention animation?
Oh, that is a great one to mention. Yes, of course you can mention that. Yeah. So I just wanted to plug that in there, just make sure everyone kind of knows that not only can we help out in this sort of forum, not only are we happy to bring that, but also reach out to us to engage on one-on-one and to find out more. And with that, I think so last time in our episode, because this is part 2, last time in our episode of PowerPoint presentation, we covered the importance of creating master slides, or going in there and tweaking those master slides, sort of refining those specifically for your use case. We went over creating a compelling cover. What else did we cover?
You kind of showed that generative fill effect.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
In Photoshop to sort of generate a nice big background image for your title slide.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to get ahead of the curveball. That is still in beta, but I feel like, as soon as that's imminent. I'm sure they're going to release that to the main one. But it is just, it's so beyond what the current offerings are for, what is it now? I can't even remember the name of that tool. but it'll be in the way rearview mirror. Generative fill is fantastic for that. So yeah, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, and we
Um,
kind of just lifted the hood a little bit on PowerPoint to kind of, as you mentioned, look at those master slides and talk about like what are they doing there? What are like what can we change? How do those changes impact like all of your slides, things like that.
yeah, exactly. So I think with this episode, we're going to be really continuing with that, and I think yeah, you've pulled together a fantastic template that I think we're also going to be sharing out. That is really kind of catered towards creating a scientific presentation. So let's, I guess, jump right in there and
Cool.
start off the demo. Go for it, Tim.
All right, let me share my screen. All right, do I sound okay? And just can you see this?
Sound great to me, and I can see it.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay. So yeah, this is the brand new kind of investigator template that we've put together. It has two options. There's a series of slides with white backgrounds and then a series of slides with black backgrounds. And so when you do open up the template, you'll see a bunch of slides at the beginning that are kind of pre-built for you just as samples. And it, like we did last week, if we kind of look at the master slides, you can see that there's a whole set of white slides and then a whole set of those black background slides. And so you can kind of decide which way you want to go. I'm going to demo a bunch of things on the white background, and then I think Giovanni is going to do some on the black background. So just a quick peek. Like I said, these are the sample slides that we sort of front loaded for you just to see how they're intended to be used. I'm going to go ahead and delete a bunch of these, and I'm just going to build some slides from scratch. So I'm going to leave this slide here because this is actually a slide that I demoed last week, our title slide, and we talked about kind of how to get a big background image in there. So I'm going to just continue on with that and build a couple more slides, kind of consistent with this theme. So were you to do that, you would just go up to new slide, and you can see here, there's that set of white slides, that set of dark slides. I'm going to go ahead and build a slide that's built to have two content boxes. So we've got our title here and then two boxes down here. So I would just put my title here. Whoops. Whoa. As we talked about last week, the Gladstone style is sentence case. So that's where the first letter of each word is capitalized. And if you're copying and pasting from somewhere else, there's some tools you can use in here that aren't perfect. You know, uppercase is not, or I'm sorry, capitalize each word is not the same as title case, but it'll get you close. So you would first kind of put your title in there, and then I'm going to go ahead and put an image on this side, and I'm going to put some bulleted text on this side. And one thing I just want to point out that we talked a little bit about, I think about this last time, there's all kinds of placeholders in slide templates. This is sort of a multi-purpose placeholder. It can hold text. It can also hold images from your computer, from the web, animations, icons. And then there are placeholders that are just for pictures or that are just for text. And they behave a little bit differently. And so first I'm going to go ahead and pick this one, insert a picture from my computer. If I were putting a slide deck together, I'd get all my pictures organized in the same folder. So I'm going to go ahead and drop my image in there. And then you'll see right away that it kind of reduced in size. So it was the same size as this box, and then it's smaller. That's because these sort of multi-purpose placeholders that give us that flexibility of text on one side or text on the other side, they scale to fit the content that you've put into them. The placeholders that are just for an image will just drop that image in there, and they will not change the size of the placeholder. So that's a little bit of the downside of these multi-purpose ones, but they do give us flexibility because you might want your image on the right side. So I'm going to just enlarge that a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and drop some bullets into the right side. I'm going to just copy them from a source, like you might have a Google Doc or a Word file or something. We showed this last week when I'm going to paste and match formatting. And then it's going to strip out any formatting that was in my Word doc or my Google Doc. These two I know are sub bullets. So I'm just going to put those inside there a little bit. There's a spot down here to add a figure attribution if you have a figure on the slide. So I'm going to do that. Just going to copy. And then again, I'm going to Paste and match formatting. This is designed to go a little bit higher if you need a couple lines. I'm just going to correct that. You can see there's a couple of things here I have to kind of manually correct. So I've got my basic slide, right? 2 content boxes. Now, if I zoom in here, I can see that this is pretty blurry. Like it's not the greatest quality. And I did enlarge it, which I normally would not advocate anyone do. But I know that a Western block, there's a little bit of forgiveness because of it's sort of like a soft image anyway. So ideally, you would have an image that would come in at 100% of the size you want it. But what if you don't have that? What if you just have the screenshot? It's really important. You need to put this in your slides. So I'm going to go ahead in a little bit and demo what we can do native to PowerPoint to kind of at least clean up the text and make that really crisp and sharp, and still use kind of the image in the center. But before I do that, I'm going to throw a couple more slides in here, and then we'll come back and do that demo. So as I said, we have a couple divider slides. So I'm going to stay with my theme of a big, beautiful background image. If you came last week, you met my best friend, the selection pane in PowerPoint. It's similar to like a layers palette in Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop. So I learned about this when I learned about accessibility in PowerPoint, which I'll we may cover in another Design Lab session, depending on how often that comes up. But before that, I didn't know about this at all, and it's really great if you find yourself clicking around on stuff and you can't find it because something big is on top of it. The selection pane allows you to sort of turn things off. So I'm just going to turn off my title. I'm going to click here to put some images into that placeholder. And again, because this was designated for only pictures, it doesn't scale down to the size of what I dropped into it. It stays the exact size that I set it. Then I'm just going to add my divider text here. And that's my nice divider slide. And then for fun, I made one other option too. It just has like half the slide, your beautiful photo, and the half the slide text. So we'll just add that same microscopy in here. Make this one longer. So the nice thing about these big full slide or half slide images, the way we set them up in the template is that you can go in and change the cropping of them. And so what I think is a nice way to make a slide deck really consistent is to use that same image repeatedly, but maybe in slightly different ways. So for example, if this is our title slide, maybe this one we want to zoom in. So we could right click and go to crop. And then I can zoom in, and I can also move it around, right? So maybe I just want the area that's got a lot of that magenta. And so again, it's the same image, but I'm just using it in a slightly different way. Another way you could do it if you don't right click is if you select the image, you go up to picture format and then way over here to crop, it'll do that same thing. So I could decide I just want, more of that teal color. And so I think that's a nice way to get to leverage, some really cool microscopy or maybe something else that you've created, using the generative fill that Giovanni demoed, but a nice way to sort of reuse elements, keep that level of consistency in your presentation.
You can echo off of your title slide and kind of create that thematic look throughout there. It's a great way of creating that continuity.
And I think too, and I've said this before, I think it's a great way to get that consistency and contrast that I think is really important in a slide presentation. So imagine we have several of these white slides and then they're broken up with these darker slides. That signals to your audience, oh, we've had a change of topic, or we're switching gears, or my brain needs to change, framing something. If you have too much consistency, if everything was this light slide, we have a tendency to sort of like get a little soft in our attention span. So if you mix it up, if you bring that contrast to it, it really does sort of create a different level of engagement with your audience. So that consistency with repeating this image and then that contrast between sort of light slides and dark slides, I think is a good way to get that. So we've got 4 slides. Now I'm going to go back to this slide here and demo what we could do in PowerPoint if we had a not so great quality image, but we needed to use it, how we could sort of improve on the text here. And so I'm going to use some text boxes and some symbols native to PowerPoint, and then also a table. So the first thing go ahead.
I was just going to mention, I think this is a great example of something where you have a photo of it and then you have some text, and that text is, basically that can be replicated, but the data itself, the gel section there that is bitmap based, you got to preserve that. It has a much higher tolerance for, because there's it's continuous tone, and because it's not like typography, really are looking for that crispness. It really is a great candidate of like, oh, okay, well, that's good enough. I can preserve that. And now you can natively put in all that typography back in, which is going to really pay dividends, right? Like, I think everybody's been in a situation where you have an image in there and you just want to, you just need to alter something anyway. Being able to like have that native in PowerPoint is just going to pay off in the future.
I hope you don't mind that I just kept going while you were talking.
No, I like that.
Cool. So I just inserted a text box. We set the template so that the text will always give you the right font when you insert a text box. So I added a white fill over here into format shape just because I'm going to cover this stuff up.
And I love that you did that too, because you didn't use a separate white box. You could just add a fill to the text box itself.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe we'll make this bold. Whoops, we need that a little bit wider. And then I'm going to do the painful step of adjusting the paragraph settings to get this to line up exactly with my source image. Oh, I just realized, you can't see my top menu, can you?
Oh, yeah, no. You're not sharing full screen.
You want me to reshare?
Yeah, go for it. I don't think you need to stop. I think you can just literally go to share screen again and reselect it.
Oh. Did that fix it?
Yep. Now we're seeing that bar.
Oh, cool. Sorry, I'm sorry about that. You should have showed me.
I should have been there for you. Yeah, sorry
about that. Exactly. Okay, well, cool. I'm glad you can see the menus up here now. So I did insert text box. So now I'm going to do format paragraph. And I'm going to... So there's a lot of... Yeah, there's a lot of options in here. Yeah. You may end up playing around in this place when you sort of bring bullets and text in, depending on sort of how it's fitting on your slide. In this case, all right, so it is set to single spacing. Obviously, I need it to be larger than that. I could do, I really wish it did a preview here, and it doesn't.
Oh my God, yes. I really wish it did a preview. This is another thing that's so painful working in PowerPoint, but yeah.
So I could play around with this. Actually, that's, oh, it looks like I was missing a dash. That's
close.
That's surprisingly close. I'm going to go back up there though, and just really quickly, if you do exactly, it will sort of tell you the points that it currently has. I'm going to just bump this up a little bit and see what happens. And I've learned the hard way. If you just like select this whole thing and just put your number in, you can't do that. So you got to have that PT. I do this all the time. Oh, well, that was a big fail. Let's try 32. All right, I was hoping to save us the pain of doing this, but maybe it's helpful to see how iterative this is, that you have to do it a couple times before you get it right.
Yeah. And Alex just posted in the comments.
Oh, I just saw that.
Yeah. You can create separate ones and use the alignment tool. There's a distribution one that you can create even distributions, which is also a good tip too. And you also used a dash there, but I think the other one was longer. It's probably an N dash. Do folks know the difference between an N dash,
Let's
a dash, and an M dash? Yeah. And how do you access them? I don't even I'm trying to remember how you do. I think I would use Mac has a great keyboard viewer, so you can see how the keys are.
You know what I do? I just Google it.
Oh, there you go.
Isn't that the
Google's
worst?
great. Yeah.
Just
Google's
Google.
amazing though. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that there's a shortcut. That's usually what I do. Yeah, but
Hmm.
that's a good point though. That probably could be. And I just noticed that this one didn't have it either. So
Oh yeah.
insert. Yes, Erica.
Yeah.
It does take time for everyone. And also software changes all the time. So in the efforts of moving ahead, we'll pretend that that's unless somebody wants to find an
Well,
end M dash for me.
well, the N dash for on a Mac, although
Let's do it.
it's if you hold down Option and then hyphen, then you get the N dash. If you hold down Shift Option and the hyphen, then you get an M dash.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think the N dash is the way to go here.
Okay.
And as the title sort of indicates, it's because it's approximately the length of an N and approximately the length of an M, which characters obviously different lengths.
All right. There we are. I'll insert another text box. As you can see, it's already formatted to the correct font. I'm going to make it bold. Oh, I'm also going to, can I fill this shape too? I think I can. Yep. And then I'm going to just copy that, make our N. And then I'm going to grab an arrow and a bracket from these symbols here. So, or these shapes. And then of course, I have to format that over here in the line palette. I need to make it black. I need to sort of bump it up. I think I want it to be 3. And then it's not perfect, but there is a bracket in here. So let's use that. And then same thing, I want that to be black. I probably want it to be the same thickness. I'm gonna line that up. Then I'm gonna take these two and I'm gonna use those alignment tools that I think Alex mentioned. And I'm gonna just line those up to the left. And then the last thing is I'm gonna make this table. So I'm going to insert a table. I already know I want 9x3. I changed the table settings to just be plain table for this template because otherwise it's going to give you some of those weird colors, and we can always add colors manually. I'm just going to fill it with white because again, I'm going to put it over this. And I'm just going to do a couple things like I'm going to merge these cells because I'm actually going to use the table for this. I want this whole thing to be one object. And then if I right click, I can merge those cells. I can even get rid of these lines if I want to totally replicate that. If I go up here to borders, I could say no border, and then I could say just the bottom. And so now it looks a lot like this. And then I would just go through the steps of typing all of our text into this, which I could do. How are we doing on time, Giovanni?
We're 24 after, so yeah, I don't know.
Well, maybe I'll show quickly. So, I would type in our title. I would do all of my numbers in here. It looks like this column I want to be wider, but then I want all of these to be the same. So I could just select those, go to layout, and then this is where I can adjust the column width. And I've noticed it works better for me if I just use these arrows rather than type something in. Looks like I want it to be a little bit bigger. Okay, so maybe, Giovanni, while you're demoing, I'll finish this table. But the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select that image and I'm going to crop that out. The same tools that we used to crop out the microscopy. And I would have triple checked all of the annotations I added. And then I'm just going to crop out all of that text that got too soft. And then I would have this new, maybe I can put at least the title in there. I would have this new beautiful table that's got really crisp text. I would probably, if this text is 28, I probably would want this to be at least 28. And so, I can make this table a little bit bigger to fill that space there. And then one last thing, I'm a big fan of grouping elements. unfortunately, I learned this week that you cannot group, or doesn't, maybe someone else knows, you don't seem to be able to group a table with anything else. And also something that's in a placeholder, Giovanni, it seems like I can't group with something else. So if I go back to my buddy, the selection pane, I'm
You
just
mean
going
that
to,
was off of the placeholders off of the master slide?
yes,
Yeah.
right? Like watch if I try to group
And
these two.
that's kind of key because if you ever want to reset the master or reset the styling to it, I could see that as an issue.
So I'm at least going to group all of these little elements just to keep those from getting disjointed.
Yeah.
And we could investigate, would I want an outline around this whole thing? You know, would I want to nudge this over, you know, just a little bit?
Alex brings up a good point, which is those boxes or those columns are lining up with the gel lanes, so that way they're on the western block of your yeah.
Oh, so I should.
Yeah.
Whoops. Okay. Well then
you adjust the type.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, then I guess I can't have that parody that I wanted. All right. So one last thing I would do, but just remember we cropped all of that stuff out. So we've got our new crisp rebuilt figure in here. The last thing I would do is I could add some transitions to my slides here. And I know that people love to use slide transitions. I like to use them just on an entire slide instead of on different elements of a slide. So I'm going to go to this fade and I'm going to make it really short. And then if we preview this, we can kind of see it's just really subtle. I feel like it's very polished.
Yeah. Adds a little bit more, rather than that sudden sort of swap. It's a little bit more elegant of a switch.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to hand back to Giovanni, and he's going to do some more work with transitions, and I'm going to finish my little table while you're doing that.
Okay, yeah. Let me see if I can share some. Okay, so prep my space a little bit better. Here we go. So yeah, as you said, this is straight out of the template you had already prepped, and here I am on a white slide. And Tammy and I worked on obviously prepping those black backgrounds as well as the white ones, because although I think it's very polarizing, once you sort of become an evangelist of one or versus the other, you sort of are, I think this is, I think the way that this really goes is that you have a long history of, or you're about to build up a long sort of series of slides that you're going to reuse multitudes of times over, or maybe you're going to revisit and you're going to update, and sort of having that that consistency across that. You're sort of, once you jump on that one train, it's hard to get off of, and also some people just feel super strongly about it. So this is definitely something we want to provide, these black background ones. But they can have their own challenges, right? Figures are generally, especially for publication, not prepped ready for black background. So case in point, if I have this figure here that looks perfectly fine on a white background, and I go to copy that and paste it into my black background, it's like, this kind of works, but it really looks like that was just thrown in there, right? I think we could do better than that, and that's what I'm going to show you how to reverse out this one. If you go back a couple episodes, we talked about adjusting colors as far as the directly in the vector. If you have the vector file, you have access to that. That's always the source to do it. You can use the recolor tool, and go in there and tweak those colors before you import them here into PowerPoint. But if you don't, if you get this from a collaborator, if you just got, all you have is this bitmap image, this raster image that is now flat, and this is what you want for, this is what you have to work with. and you're in this scenario, don't panic. Don't feel like this is all you can do. You can do more. So let's look at that. Let's switch over to Photoshop real fast. Oops. Let's delete this guy and actually quit out. Okay, that'll be edited in post. Okay, and so we're going to open up this. Let's open up this figure, and it's just here as a JPEG, right? And it's not super high res. I think that's also a situation that a lot of folks find themselves into, is that maybe it's just not, super high quality. So we can see we're gonna just working here in Photoshop to reverse that out and to juice it up a little bit and see what we can get away with. So first step is actually, it's similar to, let's treat this a little bit like we would in Illustrator, where we kind of set a canvas size that is at our target. And really our target, and to really understand the scale, I like to adjust not the image size, but the canvas size at this point. And I want to put that at the scale of our PowerPoint presentation slide. And the size of, HD slide is 13.33 by 7.5 high. And that is the actual at the resolution that PowerPoint has. That's the it in inches. So when I say okay to that, then I'll expand it'll expand my canvas out, so that way I have a relative understanding of how large that is in relation to my PowerPoint page. So now that I've established that, move you guys around so that you're not in my way. I am going to, I'll go in here, and I've actually got this set as a background, which was a slight mistake. I'm going to re-import that again. I'm going to bring that back in here so it's automatically on a different layer because I don't want to separate that. But I just deleted that, but I actually want to just fill it. Okay, so now here we are. That asset is floating in here on a separate layer. I know that I want to make this larger. It's not necessarily going to be, if you remember, if we swap back over to the PowerPoint, I had it quite large. It's reaching at least 2/3 the way up of the screen. So I'm going to enlarge that here again. And I am going to constrain scale and get that nice and big. And I am going to actually introduce, so that's one we do. I can just hit Command T or scale, and I can just upscale it, and it'll up-res it sort of good. But I'm going to show you a better way that leverages the neural filters. So if you've not explored the neural filters, they're pretty fantastic. They utilize some rudimentary AI that helps with a lot of great functionality. One of them is this upscaling, which is really, it's called super zoom. And it's pretty miraculous about how good it can upscale components of images for you. So up here, I'll activate the super zoom. You have to download these elements, and then I'll activate it, and then I'll just hit the little magnifying glass to a couple of bumps just to get us there. It's going to process this now in real time, and it'll preview us what the resolution will be. I'm asking you to do it 3 times size. That's, I think, is approximately what I need. And we can add some sharpening here. We can add some, something tells me, let me exit out of here. No, I am on the correct thing. Yeah, let's try to speed that or jump back to that fast. Super zoom. So one more go. 24 seconds, it gives me the countdown on it. We'll just wait patiently. We can fill the air with some Yeah, Alex brings up a point. Not you don't want to upres for publications. That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, why you have to go this route? I think the most hacky stuff I see is in presentations. Presentations are always people are kind of gathering materials from God knows what, and you end up seeing some very blurry sort of content in it. Gosh, where did I? Oh,
Was that
so there's
was that a
yeah.
smart object? Is that what happened?
It is not. It was not a. Oh, you're absolutely right. That is exactly why it was happening like that. Thank you so much. I didn't realize I created it as a smart object. Smart objects. I think that's a topic to get into at some other time, but that is not what I intended. So I'm going to convert that to layers. Okay. And let's try that for the third time. Again, I think this is just situations that I think you end up in where there's you just have low resolution content and you just want to be able to squeeze out a little bit more. And also on graphs, I mean, wouldn't also image manipulation, less. I wouldn't recommend it on images and considering upresing those. Okay, so I asked for a new document instead of a new layer. So here we are. So now it's you can see the difference here. I brought this back into the main one. If I were to go in here and increase the size of this one, just manually here by doing scale.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can get you.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Right. It's one of my new sort of favorite tricks to be able to use, and it worked great on photography as well. Obviously, that's what really was kind of honed for. So, so how do we reverse this out now? I like to work non-destructively, and destructively means that instead of doing things like adjusting the curves or adjusting the histogram of an image, and then by just going up to say image and making adjustments and all of these are all you're making destructive sort of changes on them. There's another feature that in the layers palette you can make adjustment layers, and those are very handy in that they have many of the exact same options that you get under the adjustments under images. But instead of applying that sort of one and done, and then you can't go back unless you go back in your history, it is actually applying it as an additional layer that sits above and is applying to the image below. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to apply the inverse adjustment layer. So that way I'm inverting the color on the image. And so that is just sitting right here. If you can see in my layers palette, it's just sitting right on top of that image, and it's applying actually to everything below it. I actually want it to only apply to the table that I have below. So what you can do is you can hold down Option or Alt click on a PC right in between those two layers, and then you get the mask mode. And basically, what is applying is that adjustment layer is now applying as a mask to that single layer below it. So here we go. I've immediately inversed the image, and it looks pretty crisp. It's in the black and the black background that I wanted it to have, but I lost my colors. Obviously, inverted all the colors, and that is also kind of problematic too, because I think what you're going to find is that you're gonna want that color story that you've kind of created from the previous graphs that you've had that may be a part of the rest of the data set. You probably spent a lot of time curating all of that and having that. So actually, I want to preserve those colors. I don't want to get them back. So what I'm going to do here is actually I'm going to Option or Alt click on PC. I'm going to click on the little eyeball, so that way I'm isolating just this one image. And I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to select my color range. And I'm going to select specifically not the colors per se of the ones that I'm actually targeting. I'm going to do, this is, I'm always talking about this. It's like the name of the game in Illustrator and Photoshop is kind of be mastering your ability to select things and isolate things in particular. So with this, I think I find more success if I actually isolate the things I don't want. And because it has black and white, and I think there'll be shades of gray in there. So let's go that direction instead. Let's select, and I'm holding down. You can see here on my selection pane, I've got it set. So my selection preview is at grayscale. So I know exactly what I'm selecting here. And I'm not just selecting these, I'm clicking where I want to select, but I'm also holding down Shift to add my selection. So I'm going to go in here and just kind of go in here and pick up all these little strays too. So I'm just going to keep clicking until this kind of goes away. And then you have this fuzziness bar that can kind of adjust too. So I'm going to make sure that I get those two bars. I'm going to draw down the fuzziness until that kind of, those two ones become solid. I'm going to add these little guys too. I'll just pick these up. And again, go here. Let's see if I can grab these just to clean it up a little bit more. Okay, so there we already entered some territory where there's a little bit of gray area, but that's fine. Choke it down a little bit more and see what we get. Okay, so now I have that as a selection. At least I found it good. I can't see that selection. Where did it go? Oh, I wasn't on the right layer. Happens all the time. Let's go do that one more time. I think it should remember my selection. That's the handy thing. It's sticky. So here I am right back where I left it off. So no time wasted. And I'm back in here, and sure enough, it's selected because I'm on the proper layer. And now I'm going to option, or I'll click on PC again on that little eyeball to bring everything back up. I'm going to select now. You can see here that this adjustment layer, it has a clipping mask in it. This clipping mask actually, because I had that selection already established, it actually clipped it immediately for me. So here we are already. Voila. We got our colors retrieved back. Alex, you have a random thought. Could you replace original colors with inverted ones, and then you get back your original ones for the and then get back your original ones in the invert? I don't know. Can you come on mic and explain what you mean by that?
If you set them to orange and green in your original, would the invert then give you back your magenta and cyan?
So that's a great, that is a good strategy. But actually, if you could reset your colors in the original, then I wouldn't even bother being in Photoshop, because what you could do is you could invert your vector completely without having to go this extra step. So this is really kind of specifically for, I'm saddled with this bitmap image. I need to modify it to be cohesive, and I can't go back to that vector one. Does that make sense?
Got it. Yep. Thanks.
Yeah.
And you've basically just masked out that layer below it, right?
Yeah. So if I look at my mask, you can see here what's going on, right? You have this mask. I mean, this is a lot of masking. But actually, masking is a hugely powerful element of Photoshop, especially for non-destructive editing. And you can apply changes to selective areas. And as soon as you kind of wrap your head around that, you can sort of you can really unlock a whole new level of possibilities in Photoshop. So I'm looking in here. I did a little option click on my little window here of the mask, and that will isolate that for me, and I can see it. And I'm showing you guys here that. But if I click back out of that and you see this, then yeah, it's basically I'm just masking out those bars that I wanted. Right. Cool. So now I've got this element. I can turn off my background layer that I set to black, and now I can just select this guy, or more accurately, I can kind of command click on the layer that I want, and it'll sort of isolate that. And I'm going to select them both. Let's see here. And I'm going to hit Command C to copy that over, because I find this to be much more convenient. And we do this. Oh, let's just, I'm going to flatten these guys down. So I'm going to hit, let's see here, merge layers here, and flatten these two guys down so that this is now a flattened image. And I'll hit copy from that selection, and I'll jump back over and paste it into my composition. And I'll replace this guy. And now I can scale it down. And there you go, a much more pleasing figure that's going to be more cohesive with the rest of your figure set, and you haven't lost that color story.
That looks so good.
Yeah, and I think you can what the other thing that, and Tammy, you kind of introduced like some of the sort of transitions, and what I wanted to share was actually a really super powerful and compelling way to add some animation to your slide deck that I think is a relatively new element that was added. And this is both in Keynote, for all you Keynote folks out there. This is both in Keynote and PowerPoint. I don't know who did it first, but they both kind of came up with this morph transition around the same time. So it's I think a situation that I could see here is that you want to transition from one slide to the next, or maybe you oftentimes are looking to transition between content on one slide. And a scenario that I could kind of see is that, say you have this bullet point, these bullets that are talking about major talking points around whatever this data set is here. But then you kind of want to introduce maybe a sort of complementary, we'll pretend for the moment, this is like sort of a complementary set of data that you want to then contrast with the two. So it would be really fantastic, and it would be really, it might add a little bit more, a little bit more production value to the presentation if you if you made that a little bit more seamless, and it basically didn't what am I trying to say here? It just felt like the transition was really clean, and you could kind of introduce this secondary element without it being like overly clunky or just like that, that snap in there. So what I think what you could do is that you could utilize the animations, but actually it's pretty amazing what you can do with just this this morph transition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to I'm going to duplicate this slide, and the way that the morph transition really works is that it's going to key off of elements that are in common in each one of those slides. So so it's really important actually that you have the same exact elements on each one. So I'm going to start with the one that I want to introduce in off screen. And I'm going to, and that'll be on the first slide. It's going to be off screen. And then in the second slide, you kind of have to think about this as keyframing. And I was really reluctant about bringing this up, but I mean, if you've done any kind of animation or any other kind of video editing, it's a very similar concept to keyframing, which is like you want to know what it looks going to look like at the first time point, and then you want to know what it's going to look like on the second time point. And so this is how you got to kind of think about it. This is my first time point. I have all the same elements. This is my second time point. I'm going to now shift the elements on how I want it to look. So I want this to be here. I want it to slide in from the side. And I also don't want this element here. So I want this to sort of disappear. So in my first instance, it's going to be there. But in my second instance, I'm going to make this disappear. And I don't have to worry about that placeholder copy showing up in the final version, but I'm just going to delete it because it's distracting. And I'm going to bring out what I want for my second element. And then let's see how that plays out. So if we do a preview, the transition. All right. So, oh, fantastic. What did we do wrong? We didn't add the morph. Let's add the morph. Okay. Let's try that one more time. All right. So you saw what it looked like without the morph. And then with the morph, you can see that one element disappears and the next element is introduced. And that can, if you start, and I think we'll probably revisit this and start demoing these sort of things in the future. We'll really start to unlock the power of what that really means. I think it has really changed my workflow from how I used to use animations in the animation pane. And if you wanted to do that before with the animations, you would have had to have, created an in event. You would have to create an out event for another thing. It gets really sort of complicated in a lot of steps. But this is a much more sort of intuitive way to actually create that a similar type of effect and add a little bit more production value.
Yeah, we do have an upcoming design lab just about animation. So this is just like a little preview.
Little teaser. Yeah.
But I think it's got such great ways to add production value, but also like content value, not just about transitioning, but also really about conveying, concepts.
Yeah. Alex says the path animations are a pain. It totally is. You have to create a path. It's really hard to get that starting and end point. What a terrible thing to have to fuss with. And I've done that a ton. And you can't throw it all out the window, but it has definitely changed the way that I approach this. Cool. So we got about 8 minutes left. You wanna round out?
We have any questions?
Yeah.
Anyone want to come unmuted and ask any questions about anything we saw today?
Well, why don't you take us back to your you were going to round out the demo, right? Tammy, you had a couple other things you
had. Sure. Let me share my screen. All right, I want to share my whole desktop, right? Oh no. Everyone saw the messy desktop. Okay. So I spent a little time sort of cleaning up and lining up my table on this one. So given time, I was just going to demo really quickly that thank you slide that we have in the template. So if I go up here, add my thank you slide. This is just a text prompt, so you would have to type in thank you, but you could use the whole width if you wanted to say more than just thank you.
Yeah, that's an important thing to say, right? Like that. if you went to go hit present from that and that text prompt was in there as a thank you, it wouldn't. Yeah, it would be blank. Yeah, you have to actually retype things. I've
been confounded by that before.
Right. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we should change that. I don't know. Maybe like a prompt to your test prompt.
Yeah, we could tweak that.
Yeah.
As you see, I just added a lab photo. I'm gonna use the cropping again and just make like a nice. I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit on these folks. And then we've got a spot here where we can add our names. So I'm just gonna go over, copy and paste a bunch of names. I'm going to do the paste and match formatting. Oh, whoops. All right, that's what I wanted to happen. So as you can see, it's in my placeholder, but it's vastly exceeded the capacity. So there's a couple things we could do here. We could make all this text smaller. Right now it's 18. I think a good...
Oh, sorry. I wanted to point out one thing that I noticed, which is that trailing white space at the very end, which is always happening to me in PowerPoint. And it always, depending on the settings of your box, I always try to get rid of that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
At the very end of the last paragraph, basically, there's going to be a return down there. Yeah, go one more or hit the cursor down and you'll see it jump down to the next line.
Oh.
Yeah, get rid of that guy. It is if it's ever set to contain in the box or something like that, then it'll be this mysterious reason why it's never sitting down on the bottom. But
good to know. Yeah. I was just gonna say I always learned no smaller than 14 points on a slide. So we could make these all smaller. We could have multiple text boxes, but I'm gonna advocate a third method, which would be to add some columns. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 columns. I'm going to make this that size, 0.2 inches. So already we've got it fitting a little bit better here. Assuming we don't need this whole bottom for some logos, that actually fits pretty well. There's a message in the chat.
Yeah, movie credits, cool. Yeah, you could
Oh,
always have.
wow. Yeah, great
Yeah,
ideas.
yeah,
Yeah. Maybe we could demo that in our animation.
yeah.
Assuming we keep it static, there's a couple things I would do here to kind of just create a little bit of hierarchy. So I would bump these things up a bit, just my headers. Giovanni, I did use Chat GPT to make some fake names for me.
Oh, yeah. So I'm proud of you.
Right. Okay. So then, there's a couple things I could play around with. The spacing. I could also go over here to, sorry, I got Windows open up. It's a little bit scary to play around in here, but we could do a little bit to sort of make that fit here. Maybe I could pull this down. I don't love this feature because I feel like it behaves erratically.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can get you what you want. Real quickly, I'm just going to add a couple more headers in here. I'm just going to bold these core names, but I'm not going to enlarge them. Whoops. There you go. And then if you want to do something, may or may not be controversial, you could even go up here and kind of, bear with me, you could kind of add some color behind your text. So I already know that is not enough contrast between, I don't like to use colored text, but I do like to use color behind text. So I can already tell this is not enough contrast. So if I'd probably want to make that text white, but I'm going to show you something really quickly. If you need help determining if there's enough contrast, I mentioned earlier, you can lean into the accessibility settings in PowerPoint. And again, maybe that's a future topic for Design Lab. But if you go to review, check accessibility. So there's things in here we don't know about yet because we haven't had that conversation. But you can see that it does flag hard to read text. And so it's saying, slide 5, which is the slide, placeholder 3, there's some text that's hard to read. So that's just one way you can sort of lean into some of those tools to help you if you need some help. So I'm going to just go make that white, make this white, make sure I get all of it. Oh, whoops, looks like I didn't all of that white. And so I could keep playing around here with sizing or spacing. I'm going to throw a couple logos in here really quickly with the last 2 minutes. So I would do insert picture from file. I named my logos to all start with logo so I could shift select and get them all in at the same time. And then I'm just going to scale those down. Whoops, not like that. Again. And then we want these to all be, about the same size. So I'm going to sort of eyeball that. And then I'm going to use some of the alignment and distribution tools in PowerPoint. I'm going to align them in the middle, and then I'm going to distribute them horizontally. And, there are rules around how much white space you need around logos. We don't have the style guides, but needless to say, there should be a generous amount of space between logos and then between logos and other elements like this photo or this text.
Yeah, the key to that, I think, for most any organization is that they just don't, they want the logos to stand out independently and make sure that there's enough clear space so that way it's always read as like you're not trying to join too closely together and they'll read as one.
And if I wanted, oh, go ahead.
Or have have implied affiliation with one another.
I probably can't get this whole thing to be on one line, which I think it probably needs to be, but you can also go in and play with the format font and condense. That's a little tight for me, but if it's important to have on the same line, I would go for that. Yeah. And you can see how unpredictable that text box setting is that I was using. But sometimes you can put some returns in here and get your columns where you want them. Like, so there we are, a sample thank you slide. And thank you for joining us today.
Cool. That ends another installment of Design Lab. So keep engaging on the Gladstone Slack channel. Let us know your questions. I know you guys have problems because we see them all the time. So don't forget to ask us about that or bring them. Don't be shy about it either. We'll be happy to answer those or tackle them in the next episode, which would be happening. Do we have a date for that? We do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have like the
September
next 3.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the next one is also about optimizing your slide images, and then we'll do some animation in PowerPoint.
Yeah. We should get some illustration stuff soon. I feel like we've been doing a lot of. Okay, cool. Good.
And we'll also share the link to where the templates are in our Slack channel. So if you haven't joined the Design Lab Slack, you should. And then
very good.
I think it'll also be available on Hello once we get that page up.
Yeah, once we sort out get our business together, then we'll get that on Hello. But that's imminent. This is a nice sneak peek, and so glad that we finally got those together. So thanks again.
All right.
See you next time.
Bye-bye, everyone.